there's one thing audiences can't resist, it's seeing actors like they've never seen them before. Because who among us doesn't love watching a performer completely lose themselves in a role? And in terms of upcoming movies, the following performers are set to transform their bodies and even their minds far beyond what anyone could have ever anticipated. I'm Ellie for What Culture, here with 10 actors who totally transformed themselves for upcoming roles. Number 10, Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale, The Bride. Maggie Gyllenhaal's impending Bride of Frankenstein remake will see both lead actors present themselves to audiences as they've never seen them before. As the titular bride, Jessie Buckley will don curly blonde hair, dyed eyebrows, and bare black splotches and bruises across her face, the latter presumably as part of the reanimation process. As Frankenstein's monster, Christian Bale will meanwhile have a large scar spanning across his head, as is tradition, while also bearing scarred lips and having the word hope tattooed across his chest. Clearly, Gyllenhaal isn't endeavouring to make this a grounded, gritty take on the Bride of Frankenstein. It's going to be big and operatic. Given that the film reportedly has a budget in excess of $100 million and will feature elaborate dance numbers, that certainly tracks. Considering Buckley and Bale's respective track records of fearlessly throwing themselves into their roles, why expect any different from them here? Number 9, Dwayne Johnson, The Smashing Machine. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is about as recognisable as actors get. And even in his better performances, he's never been one to disappear into a character, because he's just such a larger-than-life screen presence. But Johnson hopes to change that with his upcoming drama, The Smashing Machine, where he'll play former wrestler and mixed martial artist Mark Kerr. Though Johnson obviously fits the requirements for the part in terms of his physique, he doesn't bear that much of a facial resemblance to Kerr, and so wore extensive prosthetics to reshape his face throughout shooting. The result is subtle enough not to be distracting, but still proves blindingly effective, transforming Johnson's undeniable distinctive brow, nose, and jawline. Accompanied by a head of hair, it ensures that after spending years and years looking just like himself in basically every movie he's ever made, Johnson finally resembles somebody else. Given that The Smashing Machine is written and directed by Uncut Gems' Benny Safdie, don't be too shocked if Johnson actually ends up in the awards conversation next year. Number 8, Bill Skarsgard, Nosferatu. Bill Skarsgard is certainly no stranger to fully disappearing into a role, what with his widely acclaimed performance as Pennywise the Dancing Clown in the most recent adaptation of Stephen King's It. But he'll next play an even more statuesque horror icon, as he's set to portray vampire Count Orlok in Robert Eggers' new Nosferatu film. Though the movie's marketing has shrewdly shied away from showing us a clear glimpse of Skarsgard's face, it's nevertheless evident that he's undergone quite the makeup process to become the pallid vamp. Beyond the obvious physical transformation, director Eggers added that Skarsgard, the actor, basically evaporates when Orlok is on screen. Eggers said in a recent interview with Empire that Skarsgard has, quote, "so transformed, I'm fearful that he might not get the credit that he deserves because he's not there." Regardless of how the movie as a whole turns out, but I mean, come on, it's Robert Eggers, there's no doubting Skarsgard's full-throated commitment to becoming this monstrous genre legend. Number 7, Pierce Brosnan, Giant. Giant is a biopic of legendary British boxer Prince Naseem Hamed, who will be played by up-and-comer Amir El Masri. However, to date, the lion's share of the attention has undeniably been on Pierce Brosnan, who will play the supporting part of Hamed's trainer, Brendan Ingle. The first official image from the film shows Brosnan like we've never seen him before on screen, fully ditching his suave, popular style for a receding grey hairline, a pair of specs, and a tracksuit. A world away from the unrelenting suaveness of James Bond, then. This isn't merely a case of a dashing Hollywood actor superficially dressing down while in the pursuit of an Oscar, though, as Brosnan actually bears a pretty damn solid resemblance to the real-life Ingle from what we've seen so far. It helps, of course, that Brosnan is older than Ingle was when he trained Hamed, so there's no need to awkwardly slather Brosnan's face in performance-stifling prosthetics. The work done is subtler than that, but still impressively transformative. Number 6, Pauly Shore, Richard Simmons biopic. Pauly Shore is a name you probably haven't thought about in a long time, though the funny man is in the midst of attempting to stage a career comeback of sorts by portraying fitness guru Richard Simmons in a biopic. In an attempt to drum up interest in the film, Shore appeared as Simmons in a companion short film, The Court Jester, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival earlier this year, and was summarily disowned by the real Simmons shortly before his death. To Shore's credit though, he received broadly positive reviews for his performance, while looking nothing like himself, donning a wig resembling Simmons' iconic afro and suiting up in his distinctive workout gear. It's the furthest thing imaginable from the Shore who was a Hollywood comedy staple throughout the 1990s. And no matter how the final film turns out, which it must again be said also doesn't have the late Simmons' approval, Shore is at least taking one hell of an unexpected swing right here. Number 5. Paul Mescal, Gladiator 2. Paul Mescal is generally known for having a relatively slim, wiry appearance. But for the lead role of Lucius Verus in Ridley Scott's hotly anticipated epic sequel Gladiator 2, he underwent quite the regime to turn his body into a pure weapon. Shortly after being cast, Mescal claimed that he would most likely play the part with a physique similar to his natural one, which inevitably caused some blowback online from fans. Ultimately, after wrapping shooting, however, Mescal called this remark naive on his part, as he actually ended up undergoing an extensive regimen of weight training, complete with a strict diet to put on 18 pounds of muscle. Mescal added that the physical transformation also caused a psychological one in him during shooting, as he truly believed that his body could, quote, inflict damage. Well, it's certainly a far cry from the more modest dialogue-driven indie drama roles that have defined most of his career up to this point, that's for sure. But from what we've seen from the actor in action so far, it sure looks like he rose to the challenge. Number 4. Lily James, cliffhanger reboot. The recently confirmed reboot of Sylvester Stallone's Cliffhanger will star Lily James as Naomi Cooper, a climber who must overcome the trauma of a past climbing accident in order to rescue her family from kidnappers. James has always cut a slender figure, though this role has evidently required her to get into seriously peak physical condition, as evidenced by the first look set photos, which show James rocking washboard abs and decidedly more muscular arms than usual. With so much of the film reportedly capturing practical climbing rather than leaving all the hard work to VFX, it makes sense that James reportedly spent months both sculpting her body in the gym and learning how to climb for real. While there were few actively clamoring for a new Cliffhanger movie, in the very least, James seems to be committing hard to the part and should give a compellingly grueling physical performance. Number 3. Jafar Jackson, Michael. There's no denying that the upcoming Michael Jackson biopic faced one of the toughest casting decisions in recent cinema history, given the utterly statuesque nature of the late pop icon and how acutely aware of his face, his voice, and his mannerisms most of the world is. Ultimately, the decision was made to cast Jackson's nephew, Jafar, in the role. And though Jafar bears a passing resemblance to his uncle in his younger years, as one would expect, a clear effort has been made to close the gap through extensive makeup work. It's evident from the official images released so far that Jafar's skin has been made paler to reflect Jackson's own changing skin tone throughout the 1980s, reportedly a result of the singer's vitiligo. And the transformation is certainly uncanny, ensuring that even if Michael is every bit the hagiographic, estate-endorsed biopic that many expect it to be, the authenticity of the central performance will probably be watertight. Number 2. Sydney Sweeney, Christy Martin biopic. Sydney Sweeney seeks to expand from frothy genre vehicles with her next project, a biopic of legendary boxer Christy Martin. As Sweeney has made clear on her socials, she isn't taking the assignment lightly, having spent months packing on muscle to convincingly portray the athlete. Sweeney, typically known for her lithe figure, has shown off her well-toned guns on Instagram to the surprise of many, and in turn certainly persuaded most that she's going to do the part justice. In addition to this, Sweeney has also had her hair cut and dyed into a brown mullet to match Martin's own hairstyle from the period, which only further helps distance the actress from her typical look. Not too much else is actually known about the biopic so far, but with David Michôd directing, it should give us a truly transformative Sydney Sweeney performance like we've never seen before. Number 1. Christopher Abbott, Wolfman. And finally, Leigh Whannell's upcoming Wolfman stars the great Christopher Abbott as Blake, a family man who is attacked by a werewolf at his farmhouse, prompting his own inevitable transformation into one. While the first trailer for the reimagining of Universal's classic movie monster didn't show a clear glimpse of what Abbott will look like as the Wolfman, Whannell has confirmed that practical prosthetics and makeup were used for the film, rather than deferring to a fully CGI creature as audience might expect nowadays. The design process for the Wolfman was extensive, with Whannell adding that he was inspired by Heath Ledger's iteration of the Joker in The Dark Knight to try and come up with a unique design for a firmly established character. And so, piled underneath a ton of makeup, Abbott's evidently going to look nothing like himself, which of course is precisely the point for a film about a man losing his sense of self to a monster.